Have you done all types of self-growth work and find that you still struggle with believing in your enoughness, trusting in your worthiness, truly believing that you are deserving of the things you want in your life? Well, if so, today's video is for you. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm Peggy Oliveira. Thanks so much for joining me. Make sure to subscribe and click the little bell for notifications. So, first of all, you're definitely not alone. Trusting in my worthiness is something that I still question at times, particularly around my worthiness in doing this work. Not so much in my personal life, but it still creeps in there every once in a while, because our sense of unworthiness, the belief that we hold about being unworthy, is so deeply ingrained. It is something that we lived with our entire lives up until we're doing this work, right? And it's still something that for most of you watching this, still believe to a certain extent. Letting that go, fully believing and trusting in your worthiness, is something that takes ongoing practice. And that's what I want to emphasize today. The practice of trusting in your worthiness, the practice of healing, the practice of stepping into and feeling that sense of freedom that you desire and deserve. And remembering that it is a practice is so important. It is so important. Otherwise, people have this expectation of themselves, particularly, maybe other people, but they have an expectation of themselves, even if they're not consciously aware of it, that knowing something, knowing how to do something, knowing what it takes to accomplish something, that somehow that should be enough. That should be enough for you to just decide to do it. How often have you thought that? No matter what it's about, but especially when it comes to self-growth or healing or changing something within yourself. Okay, now I know what it is. I know how to change it. And now I just need to make the decision to do it. No, it's not that simple. I wish it were, but it isn't. Practicing believing to really trust in the reality that you are worthy. It takes practice, it takes patience, and all of that is the normal process, no matter who you are, of learning to trust in that, to feel it, to know it deep in your being. So, much of the practice, so there are tons of practices, and I've talked about different kinds of things. There are different things you can journal about. There are different things that you can practice in terms of being vulnerable, and there are all kinds of practices that are important. But today, I'm going to talk about the practice of considering the possibility. And I know I've mentioned this before, but this video is specifically about this practice of opening to the possibility. So I've done videos on affirmations, and I've talked about this before, but affirmations have a role. But affirmations by themselves, without some foundational work, actually can make things more difficult. They can leave you feeling worse about yourself. And whether it's just a simple affirmation or something that you're really trying to work deeply on in terms of believing that you are worthy, it all has to start with being open to the possibility that that affirmation or that idea, that belief, could be true for you. So when you do an affirmation of I am worthy, your mind, and often subconsciously, you may not even recognize that your thoughts take you here. But if you don't believe that you are worthy, and you say to yourself, you look at yourself in the mirror, and you say, I am worthy, I am beautiful, I am enough. If your core belief is not in agreement with that, immediately, before you've even completed the affirmation, immediately your subconscious is coming up with the reasons that it's not true. Not because your subconscious is trying to defeat you, or maybe something is telling you that you're not really worthy. It's not about that. Your subconscious is trying to protect you from the disappointment or the hurt or the vulnerability that you'll feel if you allow yourself to believe that you are worthy, that you are enough. And that's true for everybody, because our survival mechanisms and our subconscious is dictated by that. It's meant to keep you safe, to keep things kind of status quo. Even when those things don't feel good, they're at least predictable, and that always feels safer. So when your subconscious is telling you, and again, you might be aware of the thought, but you may not be, when your subconscious immediately pulls you back from that moment, you're not worthy. And maybe you come up with all the reasons why you're not worthy. All the mistakes you've made, all the shame that you feel, maybe even all the things that have been said to you that would reinforce that. But it doesn't have to be in your conscious awareness. It's happening behind the scenes. So when you say to yourself, especially when you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you say, I am worthy, all the reasons that you have held on to throughout your life that have reinforced the idea that you're not worthy, those are immediately going to come up. And then not only do you not believe that you're worthy, but you end up feeling worse because you're thinking about all of these things, even if subconsciously. And again, the things that are not in our conscious awareness have more of an impact in terms of reinforcing those core beliefs. So, then what the practice looks like. I would actually say that looking at yourself in the mirror and saying something can be even harder to do. So if you find it really challenging, then that's not the best place to start. But you can start with, is it possible that I could truly be worthy? And the answer is always. Always. And I don't use that word lightly or often, because there's very little in life that we can say always or never about. But when you say to yourself, is it possible that I could be worthy? The answer is always going to be yes, because you're just opening to the possibility that it could be true. That's it. Just the possibility that it could be true. You're not saying you agree with it. You're not saying it's real. You're not saying it's true. You're not having to come up with reasons why it could be true. It's just a simple, could it be possible that I am worthy? And the answer is unequivocally yes. Yes, it can be true that it's possible. It is true that it could be possible. It is real that it's possible, that you are worthy. That's it. Just, is it possible? And then when you do that enough, when you practice that, is it possible? And you could do this for worthy, being capable of something, being deserving, being talented in something. being lovable. When you do this, when you practice this over and over again, you open the door, and each time you let a little bit more light in to that space. Is it possible? Yes. Is it possible I could feel this way? Yes. Is it possible this could be true? Yes. You're not immediately going to feel better. You're not immediately going to believe it. You're possibly even going to feel some unease show up in your body, because opening that door is vulnerable. If you have kept that door tightly closed your entire life and never allowed yourself to peek outside of there, it could feel scary to open to that possibility, to see about peeking inside or outside. So opening to the possibility isn't something that's necessarily going to feel good or enlightening or anything like that. You might have some moments of that. But in all reality, it's still going to feel uneasy. But you keep coming back to the point of the practice. And it is purely and simply just allowing yourself to open to the possibility that it could be true for you. So when you consider an affirmation, and maybe you've even done this with some of my social posts or emails or videos or whatever, when I say you are worthy, and part of the reason I'm doing this video is because I shared a reel, a TikTok on you are already enough, you're already worthy, you're already valuable. And I wanted to go a little bit more in depth because I know it's challenging for people. But when you just practice being open, and when I say open, it's because when we hear those affirmations, when we hear a compliment, when we allow ourselves to consider that maybe we are okay as we are, there's this immediate thing that happens that shuts that down, right? You start thinking about all the reasons it's not true. You start feeling maybe even a little egotistical, that you're allowing yourself to consider that or thinking that. So there's this like wall that immediately comes up to shut that down. So opening to the possibility feels a little bit easier, a little bit safer. And the more you practice, the more that door opens. So try that. When you see an affirmation, when you think about that, when you're trying to tell yourself that you've worked hard for something and you deserve that raise, or you deserve to enjoy it, try to let yourself take in the possibility that it could be true, that you are deserving, that you are worthy, that you're lovable, that you're valuable, that you're capable. Practice opening to the possibility. That's it. Opening to the possibility. Is it possible I am worthy? The answer is always yes. Is it possible that I am lovable? The answer is always yes. Is it possible that I am enough as I am? The answer is always yes. And it doesn't mean that I'm suggesting that there's no room for improvement. Certainly not that you're perfect, because perfect doesn't exist. And there's almost always room for improvement in our lives. So it's not about that, and it's not about not having to work on continuing to learn and grow. It's about accepting yourself as you are in this moment, trusting that who you are in this moment is already enough. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you notice being present for you right now in your body? Where have your thoughts gone to? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And of course, if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. It'll help other people find it too. And again, if you haven't yet subscribed, make sure to do so and click the little bell for notifications. Thanks so much for joining me and being a part of this community. I'll look forward to seeing you next time.